Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome out to this Saturday morning workshop. I'm Ferre here with Steve and Swenson, and these are events we conduct about once every month or two or so, it seems like.
Yeah, exactly. Excited to be here this morning. Each month we're trying to cover a little bit of a different topic, quickly go over the basics, and then get into the topic of the month. And so last month we talked about over-the-counter tax lien and deed investing. And we had some members and many non-members alike that were interested in learning a little bit more about online auctions. So we thought about doing online auctions this month.
Yeah, and the truth is, online auctions are something that that have probably been around for maybe not more than 20 years. We know that. In fact, some of the first ones we started to see were maybe I don't know, 15 years ago or so, maybe a little bit more. But I think the main point, though, is that they came around right around the time that a lot of things with tax sales started to change and they became more accessible. And really, the internet has changed a lot of things about our lives. And the trickle-down effect, has affected everything, including counties and how they conduct their tax sales and how accessible these sales are to the average person.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to online auctions, there's just given us a lot more opportunity to invest in different areas of the country without leaving the comfort of our home. And, on a monthly basis, we have new auctions and new areas of the country and new counties and that are essentially adding their tax sales online.
Yeah.
Or moving their tax sales to an online platform.
Yeah, I mean, if you are an out-of-state investor, if you're used to investing in places that are out of state, then you really rely on online auctions in a lot of ways, to be your way to engage. And fortunately, the numbers of online sales just keeps growing. We are finding so many more sales now than there were even 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we want to do is just quickly go through a little bit of the basics so that new people understand, new investors that are with us today understand a little bit about what a tax lien is, what a tax deed is, and what a redemption deed is. And then what we want to do is essentially go look at online auctions. So we only want to spend just a few minutes going through slides, or at least just part of the time, so we can spend the majority of the time focusing on actual online auctions and looking at upcoming sales and reviewing potential properties.
Yeah. Now, if most of you are probably familiar with us, in fact, we were just talking about before the webinar here, just how it's amazing how like-minded or similarly minded all of our members are. And it's probably the case with a lot of you as well. We tend to attract a lot of people that have been looking into this stuff for a while. You've probably been pitched by a lot of other companies on things. You probably maybe even paid for different training. And, I think we tend to attract people that are highly motivated and at the same time also are not new to this industry. Or new to a lot of this. In fact, they've really kind of been through the ringer when it comes to different companies and things that they offer, and or attending different free events where they try to pitch you on ginormous packages, get you to spend $25,000 on this or on that package for training. I would say that 3/4 of our students seem to kind of fall underneath that stereotype, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely the case, and it's also, they also come to us from different online sources through YouTube, watching YouTube videos, and that's generally how a lot of our different students come in, either that or through downloading one of our free offers out there. And when it comes to tax sale investing, this is something that we've been doing for a long time. Attended the first tax sale in the summer of 1999. And within a short time after, me and Shade started kind of trying to figure out this process. And at the time, it was a lot more difficult. There was very little information about it out there, and there wasn't a lot of books or training or downloads or anything like that you could find. So it was kind of a matter of figuring out it by researching the state laws, researching the counties, going to auctions, and kind of figuring out that process. And then in 2007, after working with different seminar companies as coaches and different types of trainers, we started our own seminar company, essentially at that time.
Our own training company.
Yeah, our own training company, where we provided training to seminar companies.
Yeah. In fact, for a long time, we did private labeling with our training. So we were just kind of the guys in the background that were providing it. But I think that we saw problems with that. Obviously, it doesn't take very long working with us to understand that things like the price are a big deal to us, because we watched for years as people were paying really far more than they really could afford, for training that was really subpar in a lot of ways. And it's always something that's bothered us. It's important to us that we're able to help people, because after all we're really providing is information.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what we do. We provide information, and while certainly there's a cost to that, it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah, well, generally about 5 to 10% of the actual program cost that somebody would pay to attend a 3-day or to purchase some type of coaching program would actually go to paying for that coaching or paying for that service. And so essentially we just eliminated that, and we just,
we basically just took out the middleman.
Yeah, exactly.
And it made it possible for us to be able to provide the training at a price that, as far as we can see, nobody else can touch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, other than that, we're cousins. We grew up next to each other, in the same neighborhood, and so we've been running around together since about second grade or so. So, anyways, that's some background on us. A lot of you may already be familiar with who we are. If there's any question as to why tax liens and deeds are such a good opportunity, I think we could compare it to other investments that are available. Even if you look at the stock market, which at times can be performing well, there's always that risk there. Is the stock market about to make a huge plunge?
Yeah, exactly. Tax liens is that one investment that what your guarantee rate is before you've even invested. So we don't necessarily know what the duration may be, and there's certain things that we can kind of determine what that duration could be. But we know exactly what type of return we're going to be making. We know exactly what the property or the lien, the type of property the lien is placed against, and the value thereof. And so that's really why it is one of the safest investments that's available. You're talking about the property acting as collateral for the investment that you made.
Yeah, in fact, to get an idea of just how secure and safe tax liens are as an investment, all you really need to do is just look at financial institutions that have been investing in liens for many decades. And when they buy tax liens, they don't selectively pick, all right, we're going to buy some of these liens and some of these liens. They go in there and they pretty much buy everything that they can get their hands on. And they don't really worry about the specific lien per se, because they already know before they buy that, 95% or 97% of these things are going to redeem, and in some places it may be even higher. They pretty much just buy these things because they know that they're going to earn a solid return on every tax lien that they buy.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to tax lien investing, you're earning a guaranteed interest rate return that's backed by real estate. And then when we talk about tax deed investing, it really is the cheapest way to buy real estate, period. You're eliminating any type of lien or mortgage that may be against the property.
Yeah,
when it goes through that judicial foreclosure.
Yeah, the judicial foreclosure is really where the power of tax deeds lie, and that's because that judicial foreclosure, which every state has a judicial foreclosure. This is a foreclosure that's done according to state law. It is a foreclosure that's executed through the courts. And it is also it's a foreclosure that has the power to wipe out any other kinds of liens or encumbrances. In fact, the only thing that a judicial foreclosure isn't going to wipe out altogether would be other government issued liens.
Yeah.
You know, and so if we're talking about things like a mortgage, any kind of, really anything that a property owner can get placed against the property one way or another gets extinguished through that judicial foreclosure. The other thing that makes tax deeds so unique is that they are the only way you can really buy real estate, or one of the few ways you can buy real estate where the owner doesn't have a personal interest in what the property sells for. You know, in other words, most of the time when we look at buying real estate, the reason why we can't get a good deal on it is because the person we're buying the property from, they don't want to lose any of their profitability basically on the property. They don't want to give up any of that. And so you end up buying property for close to market value because that's what it's worth and nobody wants to lose money. But with tax deeds, we have this unique opportunity in that the opening bid for the property is going to be what's owed on it. And beyond that, the county doesn't care what it sells for. You know, they don't care if it sells for that opening bid amount or if it sells for, for 5 times that opening bid amount. All they're going to collect and keep out of that is just that opening bid amount. And anything beyond that, they'll put in an account for the person that it is owed to. You know, they're very straightforward and honest in that way. You know, they won't take a penny more than what's owed to them.
Yeah, exactly. And the final kind of point about tax liens and deeds is that there's always new inventory coming in. Essentially we're talking about 50 different states with over 4,000 different either counties or cities that are conducting auctions. So there's this constant flow of new inventory that is coming in. There's inventory that doesn't sell that ends up coming over the counter that we talked about last month. And online auctions gives us a chance to participate in tax lien auctions in places that we otherwise couldn't have done if we traveled, as well as tax deed auctions.
Yeah, really, both of them are available to us through online auctions. So, by the way, when we're talking about tax liens and tax deeds, if you're a little bit new to this, what we're talking about are property tax enforcement systems, okay? And throughout the United States, every state has its own set of state laws, and the state laws are ultimately what govern how property taxes are collected and how they're enforced. And between all the states in the country, what it really breaks down to are 3 different enforcement systems that are used. And most states will use one of these 3 systems. There's a couple of states that use 2 systems, which gets a little bit more complicated. But for the most part, everywhere in the country is going to use one of these 3 systems, either a tax lien certificate system, a tax deed foreclosure system, or a redemption deed system. And like I said, that pretty well is going to cover everywhere. So if you learn these 3 systems right here, you'll pretty well understand property tax enforcement anywhere that you go to invest.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as far as tax liens, these are essentially the method that some counties or some states will use for the collection of property taxes. And really what they do is a tax lien is a lien that's placed against the property because the property owner failed to pay the property taxes.
Yeah, and that lien it's a first position lien issued by a government authority. And some of the things that does, it prevents the transfer of ownership. That's a big deal. So you can't sell the property while this lien is issued against the property. It also is a way, ultimately the county doesn't really care about the lien itself. What they're really after is just the money that's owed to them. And the tax liens are a good way for them to be able to collect the money fast. In other words, if a person is late for paying their property taxes for that year, the county will place or create tax liens and place them against these properties. But the purpose in creating the liens is so that they can sell them to investors. And when they sell them to investors, they're able to immediately collect the money that's owed to them, for that year. So rather than waiting until whenever the property owner happens to pay, they're able to set up a sale where they can sell off all these liens and basically collect all of the funds that are owed to them right then and there.
Yeah, exactly. So in most states, if you end up being delinquent for a year on your property taxes, anywhere from 6 months to a year, then what they'll do is they'll go ahead and place a lien on that property. And they'll invite an investor to purchase that lien so that the county can get their money. Like Shade said, with tax lien states, they want their money quickly. They don't want to have to wait 4 or 5 years like it may be built into state law before you can actually foreclose on the property and recoup that money. So the tax lien states, they want that money up front. So essentially, they're willing to pay the investor a good rate of return that goes anywhere between 8 to 24% to be able to pay that debt or buy that debt from the county and essentially place that lien. Now, what makes tax liens so important is they're a first position lien, which means that they're going to have foreclosure rights like Shay talked about, and essentially that nothing can happen with the property. They can't sell it, they can't refinance it, they can't do anything with it until they take care of that tax lien certificate.
Yeah, in fact, foreclosure rights are a big part of tax liens, because the vast majority redeem. Okay, we talked about that 95% plus of liens redeem, meaning that the property owner comes up with the delinquent funds and pays them back to redeem the lien. So when this happens, the county gets the money that they need from the property owner. They will remove the lien from the property. They'll cut a check to the investor for their initial investment plus the interest rate that they've earned up to that point, because it's based on the duration of the investment. So, you can earn a high rate of return though, and the county makes the rate of return high so that it can attract investors. So you'll find, rates of return that are, great. 18% is a great rate of return on an investment that is relatively short term. So, but what's important about the liens though is that the ones that don't redeem, if they don't redeem, essentially it gives the lien holders foreclosure rights on the property. So when you buy tax liens, you're either going to end up getting a check in the mail with your high interest rate return, or you're going to get foreclosure rights on the property. But it's going to be one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. So here are just some different tax liens examples. These are actually tax liens on over-the-counter lists that are available on our over-the-counter database. And you can see these are on just different properties. Now, these properties aren't necessarily what we call sexy properties, but when you're looking at the lien amount versus the property value and the type of return that you can earn on each one of these properties, they look pretty good.
Oh yeah, in fact, really, when you're looking at liens, that's the main thing that you're trying to determine is what that lien to value ratio is and how secure your investment is. So for my investment here of $379 or $1,115, how secure is my money? And if you just look at the values of the properties, it's obvious that the money is very secure because, again, the lien represents a small percentage of the property's overall value. So really the answer is your money's highly secure, and most likely you're just going to end up getting a check in the mail for your initial investment plus that interest rate return. But if you needed to foreclose on any of these, they'd be well worth foreclosing on because the value on each of them is so high.
Yeah, exactly. 95% of tax liens are going to redeem. So you only have a chance of actually foreclosing and getting a property 5% of the time. So in this scenario, all of these liens would redeem by the end of the redemption period.
Yeah, in fact, one thing that's interesting about liens is that a lot of the people that invest in liens are not necessarily interested in trying to acquire property. In fact, some of them really don't want property. It's not what they're interested in. Banks and financial institutions don't want property. In fact, they are opposed to owning property. They just simply want to be able to buy the liens. So, it really works well in situations where people are looking to earn a high rate of return that's safe, it's secured by real estate, there's a chance to acquire real estate, but they're not necessarily trying to acquire real estate. It's not really what their thing is. For those that are looking to acquire real estate, rather than trying to get that 5% of liens that don't redeem, the easiest way really is just to switch right over and to buy tax deeds, which are a little bit different system than tax lien systems. I think the easiest way to describe a tax deed is rather than the county issuing liens against the property every year and trying to foreclose on it that way, the county begins a redemption period. And that can be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is according to state law. But essentially at the end of that redemption period, the county has the power to foreclose on the property. So they foreclose on it and offer it up at auction with the opening bid being what's owed in taxes and fees.
Yeah, exactly. I think that explains it pretty well. Essentially, the county waits till the redemption period is passed, forecloses on the property. It's, in most cases, it's going to be a judicial foreclosure, which means it's going to eliminate any type of mortgages, judgments, liens against the property. The only thing that can survive the basic tax foreclosure is going to be some type of other governmental lien. So we may look for things like IRS liens, but the most common type is something like a water lien, or if it's a structured property, maybe they didn't pay the water bill or the sewer bill.
Some kind of municipal lien
Yeah.
sometimes, or
Or a grass
actually-
cut lien, or a weed type cut lien. And so those are gonna be the most common. If those type of liens come up, then we can evaluate it and determine, is it worth it to buy the property with the lien and pay off the lien? Will the city be willing to take, essentially, there's $1,000 lien, or are they willing to take half of that? Or a third of that to get it cleared. So, but that's usually going to be a small case of these type of properties. That's the one thing that's nice about tax deeds, is essentially it's going through that foreclosure process. They're gonna send you out a deed. So tax deeds are property ownership. You're gonna own the property.
Yeah, in fact, you're looking to buy the property outright, and with tax deed auctions, we're talking about the properties that the county has already foreclosed on, and that you're able to buy, starting out at what's owed in taxes and fees. This is the cheapest way to buy real estate because, again, the county doesn't have a personal interest in what the property sells for. As long as they get the taxes that are owed to them, it doesn't matter. And so for us, that's important because it's the only way that we can buy a property this way. Even if we look at a bank foreclosure or something like that, bank foreclosures can't touch tax deeds when it comes to the prices, because with a bank foreclosure, you still have the bank involved. The bank may have foreclosed on the property because somebody defaulted on their loan, but they still borrowed money on that property. They still need to collect every bit that they can out of it because they don't want to lose more money on it. The tax deed sale is really the only situation where, the party selling it really does not care what it sells for. It makes no difference to them.
Yeah, when you've heard of the term free and clear, that's essentially talking about this foreclosure process.
Yeah, in fact, all tax deeds, you're basically buying free and clear. They are going to be free of encumbrances or any kind of issue. I mean, the only thing, like we mentioned before, that can survive are different government issued liens, and those are generally going to be small liens. Not, I guess they can be big, but they're generally going to be something small, if anything at all. And so when we're talking about the kinds of tax deeds that are out there, there's tax deeds on everything from single family homes to junk land. It's all over. But when it comes to investing in it, there are incredible opportunities to pick up property for a fraction of what it's worth, especially depending on the types of property we're targeting. Sometimes we target raw land because we love buying raw land sight unseen. In other words, we can buy raw land out of state without needing to be there in person in order to do so. We like that aspect of it and how it requires less due diligence on our part. We don't have to be there to do an on-site inspection because we don't have to worry about things like the condition of the roof or if there are termites there or something like that with raw land.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to tax deed investing, there's all different types of property, and we'll go through and look at those. These are a couple of tax deed examples. These are the type of tax deeds that we'll generally have our students buy just first getting started. That way they can do a couple of deals, and you're looking, the property on the left, we picked up for $500. Essentially, it's about 0.4 acres. It's a nice building lot within a subdivision, has a value of about $25,000. And then a commercial lot, that was picked up for $750, 1.4 acres. So this is a larger lot, has a value of about $35,000. But even if you pick up one of these type of properties, and let's say you sell it for $5,000 or $10,000, you've made a pretty good return on a property. And essentially you're wholesaling it at that price. You're actually selling it at wholesale prices, which means that you're going to be able to attract buyers quicker. Yeah.
In fact, that's one of the advantages of buying them this way is your ability to buy them at a low price also gives you the ability to sell them at a low price as well. So you can basically be able to offer property at the lowest price, lower prices than anybody else can offer because you're buying them cheaper than anybody else buys them. And it's not just one sale. I mean, all of the sales are like this. I think these are a couple of good examples of types of raw land that we go after with tax deed sales. But this could just as easily be, especially when we're talking about Of course, these are over-the-counter examples right here, but with online auctions, we actually could be looking at nice single-family homes in a lot of cases. Because sometimes single-family homes will go to tax sale. And so really it's a broad range of different types of properties, especially when we're looking at the online auctions.
Yeah.
Redemption deeds are that last system that are kind of a hybrid between the two systems. Texas is a big redemption deed state. Georgia uses redemption deeds. They're basically tax deeds that are sold with a short redemption period attached to them. So, basically what you're buying is a tax deed, but you don't have the power to turn around and sell it immediately because the state laws give the property owner a short redemption period after the auction.
Yeah, most redemption deed states have redemption periods that last from 6 months to a year. In some type of homestead properties, like in Texas case, if it's a homestead property, it can go up to 2 years. Also, one thing that makes redemption deeds, or at least some redemption deed states, different is they pay out a flat return. Like in Texas, for example, if you were to buy a redemption deed at the auction this coming July on the 3rd, and the property owner came in the very next day and paid the property off on the 4th, you would get a flat 25%, regardless if it was 1 day or 6 months, or 1 day or 1 year, depending on the redemption period. So that's one thing that makes them pretty unique. Also, in some cases, at least in Texas, you can have ownership rights during that redemption period. So you could rent out the property, you could live in the property. You're just not going to want to put a ton of money on the property because they still could redeem the property. There's some things that will allow you to do maintenance or basic upkeep, and that could be paid back if the property owner redeems. But other than that, you're not going to want to do a full rehab or anything like that.
Yeah, because there's that chance that the property can still redeem, and really though they are a unique blend, I guess, of the two. You're buying tax deeds, but there's still that chance for a flat rate of return if the property happens to redeem.
And kind of what with a tax lien, like we talked about, you have a 95% chance of redeeming. With the redemption deed, we look at the property like we're buying the property as a tax deed because we have probably a 50-50 shot at getting it.
Yeah, I think there's a much higher percentage of it not redeeming basically with redemption deeds because at this point, if somebody has the money to pay their tax bill, they're going to try to do anything they can to pay the tax bill. But the longer it goes, the bigger that bill gets. And once it goes through something like a sale, not only are they going to have to pay the past due taxes that are owed, but they're also essentially going to have to pay the 25% flat penalty that is included on that sales price. So the amount continues to increase, and it lowers the chances of them being able to redeem the property the longer it goes.
Yeah. So essentially, there's 3 ways to invest, three buying methods. Essentially, live auctions, which means that you are just heading down to the county courthouse and you're bidding in person. Online auction, which we're going to be talking about today, and then over the counter that we talked about last month. So online auctions is essentially what we're going to focus on. Now, when it comes to online auctions, there's either what we call nationally based companies or locally based companies. And what we mean by that is with nationally based companies, these companies are essentially offering their products to multiple states.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of these auction providers, they basically offer properties in multiple states, around the country. Some of these auction sites. Bid for assets is a relatively easy one to use. Some people might be familiar with that. Real auction is familiar to a lot of people, especially if you've been dealing with stuff in Florida. Then a lot of that stuff will look familiar. But Grand Street Group, Zeus Auctions, Civic Source, and these companies are less familiar to most people.
Yeah, but essentially these companies are competing with each other. And when it comes to tax sale companies, there's 2 other distinctions. There's companies that each county has its own website, and there's companies that essentially they have one website and then different pages on that website for the auctions, kind of like eBay. So some auctions will have their own website that county is completely dedicated. That our website's completely dedicated to the tax sale. And then some other of these companies will be kind of like eBay for county websites or for county auctions.
Yeah, in fact, we'll get a chance to go and look at some of these right now. Like for instance, tax-sale.info is a Michigan-based web address where we can go and look at different online auctions taking place in the state of Michigan. NYS auctions is kind of the same way for New York.
Yeah, Iowa tax auctions, obviously for Iowa. Tax certificate sale primarily does it in Florida. So what we're going to do is we want to go online and we want to check out as many different online auctions as we can with time permitting.
Yeah, so let me get this thing set up here.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go on to whenever we're looking for upcoming auctions or lists or anything like that, we're just going to go to our website, taxsalesupport.com. And essentially, we're going to either check out if we're looking for online auctions, we're either going to check out the online auction tab or the auction calendar. So if you go to the auction calendar, essentially it's going to give you a list of all of the different types of auctions, whether that be tax lien online auctions, tax deed online auctions, redemption deed online auctions, live auctions, whatever it is. Essentially will be listed there. So you can see all the different types of auctions that are taking place essentially for the month of July. If we're looking primarily for just online auctions, then what we can do is go to the online auction tab, which is going to essentially give us the links to all of the different online auctions that are taking place.
Yeah. So basically, once we click on online auctions, we can decide whether we're looking for online tax lien auctions or online tax deed auctions, or redemption deeds here. So if we're going to click on the online tax deed auctions, then we have the auctions are separated according to state. So we have them listed in alphabetical order here to begin with, where we can look at, for each one of these states, they're going to hold their tax deed auctions. Tax deed auctions are generally held, in many states they're held once a year. In some places they're held, once a week, once every 2 weeks. It's kind of depending on how often they're needed. But we can check out the state here to see upcoming tax deed auction dates. And we've got direct links to any of these auctions as well if we want to check one of them out.
Yeah, exactly. And so, even though these auctions are passed, let's click on one of these real quick, just so we can at least show them the Bid for Assets website, and we'll just go through it really quickly.
I wonder if it's not working anymore now because the sale already passed. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We just go Bid for Assets.
Yeah, we'll just do that.
While that's pulling up,
Looks like their site would be down.
that's kind of weird.
How bizarre. Let me try this one more time. I think their whole site must have crashed. Because everything else seems to be working okay, but it's just their site. So yeah, maybe we can come back and check it later and see if that's working or not.
Let's go ahead and then we can just check San Diego real quick, because that'll at least give you an idea of Grand Street Group. So most of the California tax deed auctions are handled by Bid for Assets, but there is a number of counties that use Grand Street Group, which offers tax lien and tax deed websites for counties.
Yeah. Grand Street Group is a little bit different format than some of the other auction providers. What's interesting about this sale we can see is that they've split their bidding up. On July 20th for San Diego County, we've got about 700 properties or 700 different offers there. There are different properties we could place bids on, but they've got them divided up between improved properties, unimproved properties, and then they've got a whole bunch of timeshares here. They've got 655 timeshares. They've got 34 unimproved properties and 5 improved properties. And so we could actually, if we wanted to, we could check out and see. Okay, let's say we're looking for improved properties in California, which California is kind of a crazy market with tax deeds because the value is so crazy high on all of the real estate there. So we're looking here, I mean, some of these might seem like, oh, you know.
Yeah, $353,000 opening bid, $400,000 opening bid.
Yeah, and we look, but the properties in a lot of cases are gonna be worth in excess of well over $1 million. In fact, if the assessed value here, you know, shows at 867, the property's probably worth well in excess of $1 million plus.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, that's pretty easy to say. I mean, a lot of these properties, when we look at the actual market value, is sometimes double that.
Yeah.
So, you know, if the market value of this was, or if the assessed value was 66,000, or 666,000, essentially, they very well, that could be worth over $1 million.
Yeah, it could easily be worth 1.2 million with this California market. Now, when we're looking at properties and we're looking for the best deals, you know, there's different kinds of properties you go after. With a property with improvements like these, they're going to sell for a higher price because there's less that needs to be done on the property. There's more potential profitability on the property, and it's California. And so, you know, if we're looking at some of these, you know, we might need to pay upwards of, you know, more than 50% of what it's estimated to be worth in order to land the property, you know, some of these really nice ones. But it's not like this necessarily everywhere. A lot of times we can get properties for a lot less. If we were looking to make several $100,000 on a single property, on a single deal, and you've got the capital to be able to do some of these, it could be a great opportunity for you, and certainly the cheapest way you could buy a property in California.
Yeah, and when it comes to actually researching this property, a lot of counties are going to have links that'll assist you to take you to the county records. But here we see the APN number and we have the address. So what we could do is we could take that APN number. We won't do it today, just for time, but we could go to the San Diego website. We could check out their property maps or their parcel search tools. Pull up that APN, which is the parcel number, and essentially pull up the property. And we can also, if it's got an address, we can easily type in an address. So for this particular property, we will see that it's a
condo.
Yeah, it's a condo, you know, right there on the beach. Beautiful, actually.
Yeah, in fact, just to kind of show everybody, it is a beautiful property here. And we can just pull up Zillow here to show the value on the property, so you can kind of see how the numbers would work anyway, even with that amount. So here it is. This particular property that's on that list is it says there's a pending sale right now for you know, it's being offered at 1.7 million, which is
so they're trying to sell it quickly to pay off that 400 grand in property taxes, or 300 grand or whatever it was.
Yeah, 352,000 right there, you know, is it's what's owed. But you can tell that obviously, you know, there's that seems like a lot of money until you realize that the property really is worth 1.7 million or 1.5 million even. You know, then that number, you know, is a much smaller percentage of the estimated value than you realize, because, you know, that total assessed is half of what it's actually, you know, half of the market.
Yeah, and part of the thing about something like the San Diego market, where you're talking about prime real estate, I mean, you're talking about, you know, look at the view, you know. Investors are going to be willing to pay more for that just because of the market and the area and the type of money that's within that area. So if we're looking in a different area of the country, you know, that property may not get the type of competition that this property would. So when you're looking at these type of properties, you may pay 50, 60, 70 cents on the dollar even for the property to be able to acquire it. But in that type of market, you can't acquire. This would be the cheapest way that you could get property, period.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you compare this to any other buying method you could utilize in a place like California, you know, this is going to be the absolute cheapest, because again, most parties won't really give up any of their profitability to wholesale property. And in this case, you know, we're able to still pick it up for, well, depending on what it sells for, you know, the $350,000 opening bid amount, though, it would well be worth that, you know, if with the value that it has there, and really, you know, it could bid up quite a bit beyond that.
Yeah, it really, you could even do double it and still have, you know.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the people that we have that we work with are very similar in that they're just trying to get started right now. They're not necessarily looking to spend $500,000 on a piece of property. right now. What they are very interested in, and what is really appealing to them, is the idea of being able to pick up property for really cheap.
Yeah.
You know, and when we say cheap, most people can't even grasp, you know, just how cheap we're talking about when it comes to property, because most people have never seen property sell for $100. But that's something that we see all the time here with tax sales. We can find a lot of property that sells for $100, $500, and part of what that is counties. The longer that you're delinquent on taxes, the more those taxes add up. And if somebody doesn't buy a tax sale property and the taxes continue to build up on it, it can easily get to a point where it does not make sense to buy it, and investors are going to leave it alone. Nobody's going to touch it because it has so much owed in taxes. You can have a property where there's $10,000 owed in taxes, but the property's only worth $5,000. Nobody's ever going to buy that. But what we found is that more and more counties are willing to forgive that amount that's owed just to get the property into some new hands. And so what they'll do is they'll offer an auction up where they'll sell properties, and everything at the auction is going to start at a $100 bid, or something along those lines, so you can pick up property for a much lower price.
In fact, if we scroll up a little bit in the California, we can see where some of these were re-offers. California actually does that, where they'll re-offer properties at $500 opening bids. In fact, we participated in one in last year done through Grant Street Group. So that's something to keep your eye on. There's different areas that'll do it. So like Michigan, after they have their auction, then they can do a re-offer where they'll start at $100 or $500. So the same thing, there's an auction taking place in South Carolina right now for deeds that essentially does that. So there's a ton of opportunity out there. When it comes to tax lien investing, a lot of investors just, if you just wanted to get started buying a lien, an online auction could be a great way to do that. And so we could go check out the tax lien online auction real quick, just to kind of show the investors, and then we can spend the rest of the time on some more deeds.
Yeah.
So let's actually look at the auction calendar, because I think I know what day it's on.
July?
Yeah, it's in July, the end of July. If we scroll down, Florence. Let's go and check out Florence, New Jersey, just so we can show the investors of how tax lien online auctions quickly work. When it comes to tax lien investing, it's so much easier than tax deed investing, because all we need to do is verify the property's value, the property's total delinquent taxes. So we need to know exactly how much is taxes owed, not only for this year, but past years. That's what we call the roll-up. And if the property has value in use and the roll-up, is low or it makes sense, then it's a good investment. We're not going to do title search or do hardcore research or have somebody go look at the property with a tax lien.
Yeah, in fact, most of the time with a tax lien, we can make a decision on whether or not to buy it within just a few seconds as we look over the information on it. Like Steve said, the roll-up is really one of the main things that we're worried about if we can determine that the property has use and value. Because, with the nature of tax liens, you can't transfer ownership until the tax lien has been paid off. Well, if there are multiple tax liens against property, then when you go to foreclose on it, so let's say your lien, you've been hanging on to your lien and the redemption period has expired and it still hasn't redeemed yet. Well, when you go to foreclose on a property, one of the requirements that the county will have is that all the taxes are brought current. That means that you're going to have to pay any taxes that are unpaid right now. And if there are 5 different liens against the property, you'd have to pay off those 5 different liens. That's why the roll-up is important, because it's basically the total cost to foreclose on the property if it doesn't redeem.
Yeah, and I think the roll-up's most important especially when we're looking at certain states, and especially over-the-counter lists. When we're talking about, top-of-the-line properties or good, solid properties that are coming up for sale, like in New Jersey, for example, or in some states where if the first person that buys the lien has the opportunity to buy the additional liens, a lot of investors will do that. And so, when it comes to these type of auctions, we can see with this property right here is a, $1,100 tax lien. We can say it has an assessed value of $98,000. We can also see it's a residential. We see the address listed there. So we could go ahead and click on the map version if we wanted to. to, pull up the map. We can take that address and pull up the map individually if we wanted to. We can see where there's a larger map here, and we can click on. And so we can see, essentially, there's the property located right there. We go down to the street view and get an idea of what it is.
Show me, is this one the right one? Or is it?
We can see the address.
Let me move here. 834, and the one that we were looking at is 836. All right, so it would be this one next to it. This green one right there is the one that it is. It's right there. You can see that 836 right there.
So there's the property. If we want to, we can check the property value on, Zillow. I would imagine it's $100,000 plus.
Yeah, it's not that big of a lien, really. Now we could also, it's probably, let's see, it's going to show us.
They're not going to show it for New Jersey just because they're not going to have the same type of certificate history that they would in someplace like.
Yeah, if it was Florida, if it was somewhere like Florida would be a bigger deal. Let's check it out. I think also institutional bidders have a lot to do with it too. Most of the time though, if people are more than a couple of years delinquent on the taxes, the property will end up being foreclosed on. In Florida, it's a bigger deal because you can get properties that have been sitting on the books longer.
Yeah, and if you were interested, you could go to this tax, in New Jersey, they're done in city levels, or a township, so you go to the township and see, but, you're not gonna have the same type of roll-up. When we say roll-up, essentially what we're talking about is additional years worth of tax liens. So if a property was delinquent for 5 years and they sold 5 different tax liens to 5 different investors, when one of those investors forecloses on the property, they're gonna have to pay off all the other lien holders that essentially have liens on the property as well. And so we wanna see how many other lien holders are there and how much is that total amount. Is it worth it to foreclose? If it's not worth it to foreclose, then we don't wanna buy the lien.
Yeah, and there are, we've got, let's see, 105 tax liens that are being offered here at this sale, and they start off at, under $100 and go up to as high as probably over 10,000. There's generally some big liens out there, and New Jersey pays a good high interest rate return.
18%. And there's been some that have had more competition than others. But, one of our new coaching students just purchased 5 tax liens in New Jersey and got them at 16 to 17%.
Yeah, basically he set bottom dollar amount, his low bid amount was at 15%, and he lost a few liens, to competition, but he also won many liens, at that high interest rate return. So, and really, there isn't a safer way to earn a high interest rate return. It's your investment is secured in so many ways. The other thing that's good to point out about tax liens is how easy they are. Part of the reason why institutional bidders love tax liens is because they are literally a one and done type of investment. As soon as you buy the lien, really you don't have to do anything except for sit back and wait for it to redeem, which is what is normally going to happen. And so there really isn't anything you have to do. You basically will just get a check in the mail after you bought it.
Yeah, let's go check and see if we can see a few more different types of online auctions before we run out of time here. Let's go back to the tax deeds, and we can quickly check Michigan or New York, or we could kind of do a real auction, at least just to show them real quickly, real auction, how Florida works, since there's a lot of investors that are interested. And Florida is pretty simple. Most of the auctions are going to be done by real auction, but there is going to be some that do Grant Street Group as well, and we already kind of went over Grant Street Group with the California auction.
Yeah, this is an example of one of the auctions in Florida, real auction. Some of you may have seen this auction before. You may not have seen it.
In fact, we were just on the real auction tax lien with the New Jersey one.
Yeah. This with their tax deed sales, part of what's really nice about this real auction setup is the information that they provide us on each property at a glance. The reason why this is important is because it enables us to sit through the list faster and basically qualify or disqualify properties based on the numbers and the information that we can see right in front of us. So we're looking at this first property. It opens up at about $10,000, assessed at $35,000. Well, we know that bid to value, that 10% is that $10,000 is roughly 25% probably, or somewhere in that neighborhood of 35,000, a little bit less.
37%.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's probably.
So that's a little bit high, but one thing we may want to do with that property is do a little bit more due diligence, because let's say the property value is at 60,000.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then that could actually make it a difference in what the property is and if it's a good investment or not. Now, when it comes to Florida, investing through online auctions, you know, it's going to be a little bit more competitive, but you can still get incredibly great, you know, properties from anywhere between 10 to, 30 cents on the dollar. Some of the higher quality properties, you may pay up to 50 cents on the dollar if it's good enough. Like, for example, if we saw a nice condo like that one in California, but on the Florida beach, well, that one may be worth, in Miami, could very well be worth, bidding it up. But, overall, this looks to be, a single family home, opening bid of $10,000. If you talk about acquiring property in Florida for $10,000, probably rents out for $800 plus a month.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in fact, rent.
800 right on the dot.
Yeah, rent prices are something that have continued to go up across the country, and they're not always very relevant to the value of the property, which is another great opportunity right there, is just with rent alone. In other words, let's say that you live in a market. Okay, so the market we're at here in Utah, it would take about $200,000 to get you any kind of a home here for the most part.
Yeah, and that would be, a cheap condo or something.
And rent on it is going to be upwards of $1,200 to $1,400 a month probably.
Yeah.
And yet, if we were to go somewhere where the property value was $80,000, let's say, for a single family house, let's say we're looking somewhere in Florida and they have a property that's valued at half as much, $80,000 to $100,000, it could still rent out for $1,100 to $1,200 a month. The rent amount isn't always reflective of the value of the property anymore. In some cases it is, but there are tremendous opportunities to collect high levels of rent for properties that have a lower value.
Yeah, well, we have three great comparables right here within this area. We can see one for 45, one for 103, and one for 35. So that gives us a pretty good idea of the different properties within the area. So we could decide at 25 cents on the dollar, this property very well could be worth buying and bringing $800 a month. Because if you bought it for that $10,000, it would pay for itself within a year. And any tax deed investment that'll pay for itself in a year is a good investment in our book, even if you're paying 25 to 30 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this particular sale, we've got 80-something properties that are still left out of the original offer. Oops. So we basically got 9 pages of properties here that are still available.
Yeah, 7,000, 49,000,
yeah,
$50,000 value there. It'd be another property, 7,000, 62,000, 5,000, 36,000. And when there's all this different types of homes, that gives you an opportunity to narrow in and, focus on one. In fact, focus on several so that you can get one.
Yeah. In fact, with the online auctions, that's generally the way it's going to be. You're going to have to bid on maybe several different properties, and you may not even win anything that auction if you're sticking to your guns. You're always better off walking away empty-handed than you are paying too much for a property. You're always going to be better off doing that.
Yeah, the best mistake may not be making a mistake.
Yeah.
Or I guess that didn't quite come out right, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. The best outcome, and a lot of times, can be coming away empty-handed. Certainly preferable coming away empty-handed to paying too much for something. One thing that's interesting about some of the local sales, some of the state-based sales, is the way that they present the information to you, and a lot of the information you'll find with the tax sale. This is for Michigan. They've got a site here, tax-sale.info, where they have both their over-the-counter properties, their surplus properties, as they call them, or they also have annual auctions. So we can actually look at annual auctions here, and they have these auctions listed here. You know, they show us the area here. So here's an auction for July 31st. We've got a couple of different counties here. We've got, you know, starting on August 1st, we've got some here. You know, we can see how these dates work out, and we can actually check out any of these sales if we want, just by clicking on one of these. And there are some nice things about the way that some of these other counties handle and hold their sales. The images that they'll give us on properties are current, you know, and so, you know, in fact, in many cases, we can get interior images of properties. If they're occupied, they'll tell us that they're occupied. In fact, now you're going to have to create an account.
And that's one thing we should mention quickly about, you know, most of these websites, you're going to need to create an account, but it's very simple. It's like creating an email account. Very easy, you know, and suddenly you can log in and view the information. So, you know, once we're done, you're going to want to get on some of the online auctions and start getting registered, just so you can start viewing them and setting up accounts for them.
Yeah, so this property right here is going to open up at $3,300. They give it an SEB value of $24,600. That is a type of an assessed value, not necessarily a reflection, though, of what the property is worth for sure.
Yeah.
But we know we can also come down and read the notes, and the notes on the with this service, one of the county officials, the person that went around checking all the properties, also put notes for every property, and so they'll actually tell you a lot of times what's going on with the property if they see things that are a problem. Or if, like in this case, if the property is occupied, and if the property is occupied, then they won't necessarily have a lot of images for us to go over because they didn't get inside the property. But in other cases, we might find properties that have 50 different images for them that are all, you know, exterior, interior shots of the different, you know, different aspects of the property, so that we can see everything that we want to see about it. I was thinking here, what is the name of that sale? There's a bigger sale here. Let me take a look here.
And when it comes to occupied properties, essentially that tells us certain things about the property, even though we can't see inside the property. It tells us that, you know, as of that point, there's a 99% chance they have running water, they have running power. You know, the property has to be livable and in somewhat, you know, livable condition at that point, which means that, you know, once we take ownership of that property, it also gives us an additional selling opportunity, because we can sell it to them, if we can rent it to them, and then if not, then we'll need to, you know, we'll need to go through the eviction process, you know, to essentially get them out of the property. But that very well could be, you know, a situation you can go through, but usually in those kind of scenarios, you can work out an agreement. In fact, in the past, we've given people a $500 bonus, or at least offered that as something to entice somebody to take care of the property. Listen, let's say that it was grandma's property, nobody paid the property taxes, you know, the grandson has been loafing in it for the last, you know, 5 years. You know, if you move your stuff out, clean out the property, we're willing to give you $500 to get yourself into a new place.
Yeah, you know, and here's an example of one of the properties here. I mean, in the notes, it tells us very clean looking, solid 40s ranch with attached 2-car garage, a little work, and this is a very livable house. And what we found is that they're pretty fair about their assessments too. You know, I mean, when a house is junk, they'll tell you that it's junk. We can see in this one that, yeah, it needs a few things, but like they're saying though, it's very livable. You know, it's very close to being usable. You know, it wouldn't take an extraordinary amount of work to get it ready to use.
Yeah, and you're looking at an opening bid of $2,600. Now we could check and see what the market value on this particular property is, but even if it rents out for $600 or $700 or $800 a month, and you end up spending $5,000, anytime you can buy a home for under $10,000 that you can turn into a rental opportunity, or a opportunity to turn around and sell it and make a profit, either that be that through wholesaling the property or going through quiet title and getting, you know, clean title on the property.
Copy that so I can. Still in the same area, not here. What do you do? No, let's see here.
And click on it. It'll be different.
Oh, that's dumb. Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
pull up all of them.
yeah, it's probably one of these here where we'll pull up. Well, we would track down this value here if we had a ton of time, but since we don't, we'll just kind of keep looking here at
Either way,
some of the
look,
properties.
Just based off of that information,
Yeah,
$2,600, I'm taking a shot on it, I mean, we're gonna do some more due diligence if we're actually gonna bid on
yeah,
it.
it's looking
But,
pretty good though.
yeah, everything looks great to the point where, where it's gonna be a pretty safe investment at that dollar figure. Is the amount goes up, obviously, so does the risk. So also does the research and the amount of due diligence that we're going to do into it.
Yeah, there's a nice piece of industrial land, 3 acres of industrial land here. They're gonna sell starting off at about $2,500. And let me just back up here. Actually, let's look here. You can also find tons of just nice like lakeside properties here. I mean,
Yeah, there's some beautiful ones that are right there on the lake, the sandy beaches.
yeah, it's incredible. In fact, here's a property here. Let's say you just wanted the big lakeside property here. Here's one we could look at. And I'm trying to think here, if this is the one here that shows. Oh no, that's right. This is a different one. This is a different lot here. Let me go back to the catalog. And we can also separate the lots here. If we were looking for waterfront here, we can click on these ones and it will show us just the cottage with a tree on it here. We could look at some of these different properties here to find lakeside properties. We found a lot of nice little cottages and things like that available on these
And we're not,
lists.
we're not looking at incredibly high opening bid, $800. I mean, if the property has, let's say it has a market value of 10,000, well, you're looking at paying 8 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
So even if you sell it for 30 or 40 cents on the dollar, there's still a good opportunity for profit.
Yeah, a lot of commercial property. This one right here is saying it needs to be demolished or is potentially rebuilt.
And that's one thing that's nice is that a lot of these different counties are going to provide notes, and we can actually look in New York and find similar type things in some of the New York auctions where they're going to include pictures. Some of the counties even have open houses that you can go to and walk through the property before the auction actually starts.
Yeah, this is just a quick auction here in New York with NYSauctions.com, and they have like 300 different properties that are going to be offered here at this coming sale. And what's interesting, they also have them divided up here into these, and so we can see residential vacant lots. We've got 147 single-family homes. We've got 61 of them. So let's say we were looking for a single-family home.
Yeah, we got 61 different opportunities.
Yeah, and just like Michigan, this is one of those states where they provide us with oftentimes interior pictures of the property and things like that. So, we could click on some of these properties here and get additional images here. I think this property is still.
Yeah, when it comes to, when Shane was talking earlier, when we were looking at the over-the-counters, how we will purchase land sight unseen. When it comes to structured properties, we require, if we can't do an on-site evaluation, we're going to require current photos of the outside and as much, as best as we can. And what this does is it actually provides these for us because these photos most of the time are taken, essentially right before the foreclosure. In fact, they'll include the sign in the yard. So, these photos, you can see the sign right there, essentially. And so this, this photo is taken, probably within the last month or two.
Yeah.
That's a nice home. I mean,
Yeah, it really is. It really is a nice property there. And, as we look around at all of these, there are a ton of properties here that could potentially work out really well as rental properties. Yeah, it is a nice property, and the bid increments, what they start at $100.
Yeah, they're generally going to start at, in this case, kind of scenario, $100 scenario, or, you know, delinquent, what's owed. But even what's owed generally is gonna be about 5-10 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, just tremendous information, tremendous opportunities with these auctions, and we're only finding more. It's only getting easier. It's only becoming more accessible. So I think really for everybody that's here. Oh, I did not even see all the questions. I'm so sorry here. We've been passing questions here. Okay, so yeah. Now, by the way, you know, when it comes to bidding on the nice properties, there, one of the things you do have to do is you have to have the capital available and ready to use here. So, you know, yeah, the one downside to some of the California laws, yeah, you'd have to have $500,000, you know, plus sitting aside in order to buy, you know, one of those properties, because you're gonna have to make payment arrangements shortly after you place the bids, when the bid on the property.
Yeah, you're not gonna be able to get traditional financing on a tax sale property. We don't have time to go into all the details why. At least generally, you're not going to be able to unless you go through a service that essentially will make sure that they can get title insurance on the property, like you know, tax title services or something like that. It's kind of the way that we receive the title. We'll receive the title clean, free and clear of any liens or judgments, but the county's not going to warranty the deed. And so essentially, you know, there'll be a bit of a process to get financing, traditional financing on it. So with these type of deals, you're going to need either, you know, cash up front, or have a hard money lender if you're looking through financing that's already kind of approved the deal.
Yeah. Let's see, Eddie here was talking about trying to find some nice small lots, raw land, you know, for farming at a good price in San Diego this year. California's getting crazy. You know, I think with their real estate market going crazy, it's causing their tax sale market to go a little bit crazy too.
You know, the best time is, this isn't their big auction. They'll have another auction where they offered a bunch more land. Sometimes they'll do a resale. This is a little bit more of a smaller auction. They had a larger one earlier.
Yeah, this is mostly their time sale. You know, I mean,
yeah, it's their timeshare auction where they've thrown in, you know, 40 other.
Yeah, well, they got 650 of them.
Yeah, well, I mean 40 other.
Oh, yes, yeah.
They had like 34 lots and 6 structured or something.
All right, now another question that Carolyn asked here: what happens if you pay for a lien that is for land, but a brand new house is built on it? So normally, when you go to buy a lien, the lien. So let's say you buy a lien against a piece of raw land. There shouldn't be a house sitting on it, because normally you'll have the house would be a part of the land that it's sitting on. And so normally if you go to buy that lien, it would be just for the raw land. Now, in some cases, you might look at a piece of property that looks like it has a home on it, only to find out that it's actually just a piece of raw land. You know, that happens a lot of times because houses get torn down, or houses, you know, it's a mobile home, sometimes they can get removed. But normally the county will normally the assessment for the property is, you know, based on what's there, which would include raw land. If there's improvements, then they normally include that, and that's really how you come up with the tax bill amount. So normally, if you buy that, it's not normally going to happen.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to probably get permits to put a home on the property if they haven't even paid the delinquent taxes on a lot. But if that happened, it would just become part of the real estate, so it would just increase the value. So it just makes the lien, instead of, you know, a lien that you bought for $100 on a $10,000 lot, it'd be a lien that you bought for $100,000 on a $100,000 home. You know, so the chances of that actually happening are rare because of that. But if it did, it's not going to hurt you at all.
Okay. And then another question here is, see, if we want to buy tax lien certificates, must we go through a third-party company? And are there any different price for one another? So when you want to buy liens, I think what you're asking here, you know,
Secondary.
Yeah, I wonder if you're asking here about the secondary liens, like to go through another company, because if you want to buy liens, you don't have to go through another company or third-party provider.
Yeah, in fact, at this point,
it's easier to buy them directly.
Yeah, we'd also, you know, we don't have anyone that we would recommend buying a third party. And if you're looking at third-party liens, you know, be very careful to check and research the liens.
Because a lot of them are junk.
Check the roll-up, check all of those different things. In fact, that's part of the struggle we're having right now. We were able to provide pretty good over-the-counter secondary liens to many of our investors, but it's just kind of dried up where we have to buy so much junk to get good liens that it's just not making sense. So for most of our investors that we're working with, we're just showing them directly how to go buy those type of liens, either through online auctions or over the counter.
Another question here is, do you have any training on the sale of a home you have acquired via tax deed? I think all of the training is kind of related to it.
Yeah, we have a bunch of different specific trainings in our course library, in our video library, in the membership section of the website. You can also check some of the webinars that we have on YouTube, where we'll go over different types of selling strategies that we've used on all of our properties.
Yeah.
So you'll see, ones that we've used with single family home, if that's seller financing or the different ways that we've sold it. In fact, probably wrap up, probably go over a little bit of the services that are available here on the website. We talked about the auction calendar before and all of those services that are available. We also have a massive over-the-counter section as well, where we're going to have, over-the-counter liens, deeds, redemption deeds. We also have the complete access to all of the different types of land banks that are available.
This is actually something that we just barely added, and this is a crazy opportunity.
Yeah, these are just different types. Even in tax lien states and deed states, there's a trend to set up these land banks that essentially take tax defaulted property, property that the county or city may have got donated to them, or just required it through different means, and essentially sell them over the counter. And so, like Georgia, for example, Georgia's redemption deed state for those properties that never got bought at the sale. What do they do with? Essentially, they've set up these different types of land banks. You can see the different land banks that are available in Michigan and in Ohio. All throughout the country, there's these different types of properties here. And some of them will be a little bit more simple, where you just download a list and it's more kind of a simple website. And some will have, a very detailed, essentially map, where you can pull up all of the different properties. You click there to download them, that's what but.
Yeah, we can view at least and see their list. This is for Baltimore, Maryland, and as you can see, they've got a 30-page long list of properties that are in their land bank. And the land bank properties tend to be ones that they're willing to deal on, or you can get for bottom dollar prices, because they're typically like the leftovers.
Yeah, exactly. And so, in addition to, all of the lists that we provide, the auction calendar, I think we had almost 30 different states that have auctions this month. We also provide all of the IRS and treasurer auctions. Any type of auction that's going to be a government auction where you can acquire real estate for, pennies on the dollar or for discount prices, essentially, you're going to have access to here on the website.
Oh, okay. And the question you were asking earlier about buying tax lien certificates through the third-party companies like Real Auction or Grant Street Group. No, there's not really a price difference between them, other than the degree of competition. In fact, I don't even know for sure if I could say that you have, that you're going to end up paying higher for Real Auction than you would versus Grant Street Group or something like that, due to competition. I think they're fairly comparable.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on the auction as well. Like, let's say we're talking about tax deed auctions. I guess, tax lien auctions, they're going to be a little bit different because it's one time a year. And so, when it comes to online auctions, some will have more competition than others. If it's like a deed sale that has auctions every month, then even on a monthly basis, one month may be a ton of competition, and the next month there may be less competition.
Yeah.
But even in addition to that, you're going to have access to literally hundreds of hours of different webinars and trainings that Shade and I have done. We also just updated our home study program.
Yeah.
And so, with our membership, what we try to do is make it affordable and try to provide everything we can to help you be successful. So, You know, we have a 750-page home study program that's, you know, has 5 different manuals to it that's going to essentially cover different aspects of tax sale investing. So we try to make everything feasible. You know, $30 a month, you can cancel at any time. And we're so confident that we essentially offer a money-back guarantee, which is something, you know, we've only had to do a couple of times the entire time we've been going.
You know, how do you personally keep track of all the properties you're reviewing, buying, or have an interest in, etc.? You know, we use slides.
Yeah, that's going to be completely kind of on a personal. We do have different lien trackers and deed trackers available in our membership section that you can download, like Excel trackers, to be able to do that. But us personally, we actually, like Shade said, we use Google Files, different types of Google Files.
Well, in fact, you know, really, if you want a good online tool for doing this kind of stuff, we use the Google Slides program here because we end up sharing the folders and files with a lot of different people. So it's a way to kind of coordinate between you know, between everybody. And so you know, we also you want me to, yeah, like well, yeah, you want to show some micro properties?
No, I was just going to show New York.
Oh yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, we can take a look here at some of the New York properties here, and you can kind of see the way that we organize and put some of these things together. So part of what we do, like with our coaching students, we've got lists of pre-selected properties that we'll work on. So we try to put the lists together in a way, in a format, so we can see what each one of the properties are relatively easily and quickly. You know, with Google Slides, it's a free program that you can use that it's kind of like PowerPoint online. And we found this offers the best combination of you know, the ability to, then we basically cut, we do image capture on our screen of different aspects or different parts of the sale. So we'll grab things like this very top part tells us the opening bid amount. And below that, we've got part of the record there, the county record telling us information. Then we've got part of their map view of the property. You know, normally all these things that are on different pages or different, you know, web pages, we try to put on the same place so that we can see everything at a glance. And we can also put notes about the property down below if we want.
Yeah, so essentially as we're reviewing an upcoming auction, we'll create one of these files for that auction, and we'll just take some of the basic information that we're researching at the time anyway. We'll just take screenshots of it and put it together on these files. So we essentially have all the properties that we're interested in bidding. We have the information right there at the glance, and then we can put notes in there on properties that we may be interested in bidding on.
Yeah, I think I'll bet we've got the property that Jim just bought still in here. You know, he just sent in an offer there and found some great deals on properties. And really, you know, we've got properties all over the place. You know, they're like this, but that's probably one of the best tools that we found for coordinating with other people and being able to put the information in a format. We like doing it this way when we're getting ready for a sale because it's easy to see what each property is. You know, it's easy for us to track notes and things like that in the properties as we're comparing. It just tends to be the easiest way. You know, we just basically cut and paste different bits of information onto the same slide so that we can look at it at a glance and know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, other than that, I know we've pretty well used up all of the time here. We really appreciate everybody's patience and staying with us here. If you'd like to sign up, you can join here. You know, the membership program is cheap and you can cancel anytime. And we occasionally have openings in our coaching or mentoring program. This is a lot smaller program, so it's not something that is going to work for everybody. It's not very expensive, but you know, I think everybody that we are working with, they're all pretty like-minded in terms of trying to accomplish some of the same things.
Yeah, we're not a large company. We're essentially a small company, and that's kind of the way that we like to keep it. You know, we enjoy doing investing ourselves. We're currently in the process of buying and selling property. And so, you know, we like to work with a handful students, you know, to help them on a coaching basis. And then, of course, we want to offer everything we can to our membership program to help other investors, you know, learn how to get started with tax sale investing. That's really the reason we do this is, you know, it would probably be more profitable for us just to focus 100% of our time on investing. But we love the training aspect, we love the teaching aspect of it.
Yeah, it's become a normal thing for us here. And realistically, here's a question we have. Realistically, how many hours a week will you need to dedicate this business to buy and sell 3 to 5 properties a year? Not very much for 3 to 5 properties a year. You know, I mean,
with our coaching students, like we had a guy that came in a couple of weeks ago for a 3-day. And essentially by the end of that 3 days, you know, he had purchased 4 properties. You know, with our coaching students, within the first 3 or 4 sessions, they'll purchase several different properties. So, you know, when it comes to deed investing, I don't think that would be very hard at all, because once you've bought the properties, then it's just a matter of sitting on them and selling them. So if you're buying 3 properties, you could do that fairly quickly, and then you'd have a whole year to sell them.
Yeah, I mean, really, the way it would probably work if you wanted to do 3 to 5 properties a year is you would take 1 month where you would, spend a few hours going through lists and trying to identify 3 to 5 properties that you like, doing some research on them, and then buying them, and then it might take you a month or 2 months before you receive a deed on them, and then you can go through some work to sell the properties, which is also never been easier than it is today. There are more resources out there to give you more exposure than you've ever been able to get before. You know, being able to sell a property on your own now is much easier than it was 20 years ago when you needed a realtor almost to be able to sell anything. You know, just so many ways for people to be able to see your listing and the information that that you're providing now. So it wouldn't really take that much time. It's also partly depending on the types of property you're going after. If you want to buy 3 to 5 single-family homes a year, then that would be a different story because you'd have to be engaged in a lot of auctions probably to get the properties at the prices that you wanted. You know, so you might need to engage in 5 to 10 different sales.
Yeah, well, if you're looking 3 to 5 properties a year, that would make sense. It would probably take you a year to get those 3 to 5 properties. If you just focused in one county in Florida, you participated in every auction, and about every other auction, you got a property.
Yeah.
So, you know, over that period of time, every couple of months, you get another property at the auction, and for each property you get outbid on 6 properties or 4 properties or whatever. So there's a lot of different strategies that are involved when you're talking about tax deed investing. You know, if it's something you're interested in, go ahead and join our membership. Each week, we're going to essentially do the same type of training we're doing now, but they're going to be on more specific type of topics that we're going to share with our members. So, you know, definitely the opportunity has never been better.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that's pretty well everything that we can cover here today. If you'd like to join us, though, you're welcome to go to the taxsalesupport.com and go into the membership section. You can sign up there to enroll, and we can get you set up with an account today.
And this is recorded, so we'll be go ahead and uploading it to YouTube, and we'll send out an email to everyone in case you want to catch the replay.
Oh, and by the way, the membership webinar versus the regular webinar, it's the same thing. You know, we do our weekly webinar every Wednesday night for the members to attend. Let's see, I think that's pretty much it. Hey, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We always love having it, and you can reach us also by email if you have any questions. Shade at TaxSaleSupport or Steve at TaxSaleSupport.com.
Yep, thank you guys.
Steven at TaxSaleSupport, sorry, with a PH.
You guys have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you next month, and hopefully you'll be on our membership, and we'll see you in the weekly webinar.
Yeah, we'll see you guys soon.